Welcome back. Part 3. I know I told you this is going to be a long one, but we're almost done. So let's talk about stress. Let's talk about stress. So stress mainly infects obesity because of one of two ways. One, in a lot of people, not in everybody, but in a lot of people, stress impacts food choice and the amount. For a lot of people, they overeat in stressful situations. The other way that stress impacts obesity is in fat accumulation, particularly abdominal fat accumulation. But when we talk about stress, we do need to separate it out and make sure that we can distinguish between an acute stress versus a chronic stress. An acute stressor, such as exercise is a stress, that actually is going to cause the release of epinephrine, norepinephrine, or catecholamines, which decreases food intake. That's good. Remember, this is one of the reasons HIIT training is beneficial. Chronic stress, though, where you're sitting there just worrying about bills or marital issues or whatever that may be, the hormone that's released in response to chronic stress is cortisol. Well, cortisol specifically interacts with receptors in the abdominal fat area and promotes fat accumulation specifically in the gut. Obviously, not a goal for someone who's trying to lose weight. And so stress can cause you to eat more, and it can cause you to gain this fat in the belly. This was highlighted, at least the eating more was highlighted in a lot of studies. I just thought this was interesting. I usually show this paper to my college students. They measured, these authors measured the amount of calories that people ate on a test day versus a non-testing day. And they found that on testing day, girls increased energy intake by about 135 calories, and boys increased fat intake on testing days just because it was a test day. They felt like, oh, I just need to eat more because of the way the stress caused them to react. And so again, for a lot of people, they eat more. Now, not everybody, about 20% of people don't change their eating behaviors in response to stress. 40% increase eating and 40% decrease. But if you're struggling with weight, I would guess that you're probably one of those that increases eating in response to stress. Um, let's take this to the extreme, though. This was I'm talking about the stress to extreme. Here was a landmark study. Again, this was done on rats or rodents. And in this study, they created two different rodent societies. One rodent society was exposed to acute stressors. Acute stressors are not bad, they're good. The rats were able to overcome this acute stress. They flourished. The reproduction rates, which is a sign of growth and flourishment in rats, were through the roof. The second mouse society was placed under chronic stress situations. What these researchers were trying to do was to mimic the traditional American worker. So they were placed in chronic stress situations that they could not overcome. This is you at work where you're given deadlines that are just unrealistic. And the moment you get to that deadline, your boss gives you something else you have to try to overcome. These rats, let's look at what happened to them. These mice began to express extreme submissive behaviors, helplessness. They were socially handicapped. They also had more fat and abdominal fat. Um, if we have these stressful things in our lives, and we can't not go to work, right? But we need to figure out how to deal with this stress so that it doesn't stop our ability to achieve our goals. The extreme example, if we don't deal with stress, is Cushing syndrome. Now, Cushing syndrome is a disease, and so this isn't something that you have, but I'm just trying to make a point of what cortisol can do. Now, remember, cortisol is released because of a lot of stress. Cushing syndrome is somebody that has obesity, abdominal obesity, such that it hangs over the belt line. They also have a very flushed face. And if this gentleman turned to his side, you'd see almost like a hunchback. This is because they have cortisol that's just being released. Now, this can be somewhat treated with cortisol blockers, but I show this because this is what happens when cortisol is just dumped into the system and we don't take care of it. So let's look at the take-home message and some things that we can do. There's no such thing as food addiction in the same sense of a drug addiction. It's important to understand because this means that you are in complete control. Two, foods that are more likely to be problematic, i.e. coping foods, or foods that are processed. These are foods that are high fat and high carbs in the same food. Get rid of those foods. Three, many psychological components are needed to overcome negative eating. The most important is dietary restraint. But you have to practice mindfulness-based eating so you don't get over restraint and binge eat. And the last one is chronic stress causes you to gain weight. And so we obviously needed to deal with that. So let's look at some activities that I'm going to have you to do kind of for your homework. So I want you to go through this. Again, I took this out of your book, and look at each of these factors that can contribute to eating and rate that between a 1 and a 5. 1 being doesn't contribute at all, and 5 being contributes the greatest amount. Any one of these factors that you score a 4 or a 5 on, you need to set a plan or a goal to help you address that particular item. Write that goal down every week and try to get better and better at it. And so that's one thing I need you to do. The next thing you need to do is to look at stress. This is a commonly used stress score or stress survey. Go through here and answer the questions, putting checks on whatever your answers are, and then go ahead and follow the scoring laid out here. This one's easier to score than the Pittsburgh Sleep Scale. Notice that there's some reverse scoring. And so the ones that are reverse scoring, if it was a 0, it'd be a 4. If it's a 1, it was a 3. And then see how you fit based off of age, gender, and race. If you're above the average, so meaning you're slightly stressed, set some goals to help you reduce your stress. In the book, I do lay out some examples for you in the book. And so incorporate some of those examples so that you can help yourself overcome this stress. All right, that was it for this one. One more, guys, and then you've completed this course. So I'll see you in a bit.